Welcome back everyone, my name is Nick, and on this channel I like to discuss topics about health and fitness. So if that's something that you're interested in, you're in the right place. One thing that I commonly get asked about is whether or not the glycemic index is a useful tool to follow when it comes to selecting carbohydrates with regard to building muscle or losing weight, or both. It is possible to do both. And simply put, the glycemic index is a measure of how quickly a food causes our blood sugar levels to rise, and it ranks these foods on a scale of 0 to 100, where the higher the number, the faster our blood sugar rises after a meal. Additionally, this ranking only applies when a food is consumed on an empty stomach without any other types of food. Pretty simple, right? Unfortunately, most people seem to be not aware of the last 2 points, and because of that, they tend to structure their choice of carbohydrates solely around an index of food rankings, which, if you can imagine, can be somewhat restricting to say the least. Now, that's not to say the glycemic index is good or bad. It's essentially what it is, an index. And yes, foods that are typically less processed, high in fiber, are on the lower end of the index, and foods that are more refined and more devoid of nutrition are on the higher end. There is a correlation, but that's not always the case. A good example would be something like a potato. It's a good source of carbs, has a decent amount of fiber, and it's a great source of vitamin C and potassium. It's cheap, it's versatile, and honestly, it tastes delicious. Unfortunately, any glycemic index you look at will rank white potatoes pretty high. So is that something you have to avoid if you're building muscle or losing fat? Do you have to compromise if you enjoy eating potatoes? Well, no, and this is where people who have a surface level understanding of the glycemic index fail to realize that in general, the glycemic index of a carb source doesn't really apply unless you are eating it coming off of a fasted state and without any other type of food. Now, I don't know your eating patterns, but anyone who's eaten food before knows that's generally not how people eat. Usually a carb source is paired with other foods. So let's say you ate potatoes with chicken and broccoli. Geez, I've been hanging out with bodybuilders too much. The glycemic index of the meal is going to be drastically lowered. So what does this really tell us? Well, unless you're someone with a pre-existing condition, the glycemic index isn't good or bad. It's just really not relevant when it comes to building muscle or losing fat, provided that each meal you eat includes other macronutrients, like protein. Rather than focusing on the index and the numbers itself, stick with eating foods that are minimally processed and higher in fiber. You'll find that naturally these foods tend to be on the lower end of the index anyway. Of course, the reason I don't want you to be caught up on the index is that it can also restrict you from certain foods that aren't inherently bad despite being higher on the glycemic scale. Remember, there is a correlation that refined processed carbs are on the higher end, but so are some fruits, and I wouldn't recommend cutting those out just because they are on the higher end. It's a good reference to have on hand, but hardly one that you'll probably refer to in a practical day-to-day situation, provided that you eat a balanced meal throughout the day. Fixation on this, I find, tends to lead people to cultivate bad eating habits, which in the long term can hurt more than help. So hopefully this video helps teach you how to put the glycemic index into perspective. If you have any questions, comments, or things to add, leave them down below, and I'd love to start a conversation. Anyway, I'll see you all next time.